Hello students, welcome back. This is the last part of chapter 23 lecture dealing with evaluating variances from standard cost over chapter 23. Okay, now this is a very important chapter because you are going to be seeing something similar to this on your exam. So it's very important that you understand. This particular problem that I'm going to go over covers three important components of the direct materials cost variance, direct labor cost variance, as well as identifying the standard cost for the goods. Okay, so you are going to have something similar to this, to the next exercise that I'm going to be covering, so pay close attention. All of the formulas are included in your textbook or your ebook. It's just a matter of you applying the correct formulas to what they're asking. So it's very important that we read carefully so we can be able to apply the correct formula to what is it that the problem is asking us. Okay, so the problem that I'm referring to is problem 23-1A. This particular problem deals with direct materials and direct labor variance analysis. Okay, now this problem reads: Shasta Fixture Company manufactures faucets in a small manufacturing facility. The faucets are made from brass. Okay. So the faucets are made from brass. The manufacturing company has 70 employees. Each employee presently provides 38 hours of labor per week. And information about a production week is as follows. So this is what happens during 1 week of production. Okay, so we have the standard and then the actual. Okay, so we need to be able to differentiate the information for standard versus actual. Okay, so here we have our standard wage per hour of $20. The standard labor time per faucet is 30 minutes. So that's how long it on standard should take us to produce a faucet. The standard number of pounds of brass that we need for every faucet is 2.5 pounds. The standard price per pound of brass is $1.80. The actual price per pound of brass is $1.95. The actual pounds of brass used during the week is 13,000 pounds. The number of faucets produced during the week is 5,000 faucets. The actual wage per hour is $18.75, and the actual hours for the week are 2,660. Now we have three requirements for this particular problem. The first one is to determine the standard cost per unit for direct materials and direct labor. The second one is to calculate the direct materials price variance, the direct materials quantity variance, and the total direct materials cost variance. Okay, and the last requirement is to calculate the direct labor rate variance, direct labor time variance, and then the total direct labor cost variance. So there is a lot of calculations going on here, but they're the same calculations that we've been practicing on, and like I said, or I stated previously, all of the formulas are included in your book. So let's start with the first requirement. It's to determine the standard cost per unit for direct materials and direct labor. So my standard direct material cost is basically your standard price times your standard quantity. Okay, this is materials cost. So it's your standard price. Okay, what is my standard price? Well, your standard price per pound for the brass is $1.80. I'm going to multiply the standard price times the standard quantity. Well, I need my standard number of pounds of brass is 2.5 pounds per faucet. So we are needing or anticipating needing 2.5 pounds of brass per faucet. Okay, so we now calculate it's $1.80 times 2.5. That gives me $4.50. Okay, let me get that over here. Okay. For in materials, for every faucet that we manufacture, we are anticipating spending $4.50. Okay. For direct labor, my direct labor cost is your standard rate per hour times your standard time. Okay. Now my standard wage per hour is $20. Now here, to get the standard time, because we are talking about time, the standard labor time per faucet is 30 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the 30 minutes. Excuse me. Divided by the 60 minutes. Okay, so we can figure out how much by 60 minutes. Okay, the time component. Okay, so let me do that in my calculator right here. So 30 divided by 60, that's 0.5. So I'm going to be using 0.5 time. I'm going to multiply that times $20 an hour. So that means that for every 30 minutes that it takes me to produce a faucet, I'm going to spend $10, which makes sense. It's half of 20, okay? So for every half an hour that you spend manufacturing your product, that's going to cost you $10 in labor, okay? Let me just format this, okay? So now I know that I'm going to spend on materials, on my standard. This is my standard material labor cost and materials and labor costs. I'm going to spend $4.50 in materials and $10 in labor to manufacture one faucet. And this is my standard cost, okay? So I add those two together. So my standard cost in materials and labor is $14.50, okay? That is my standard material and labor cost per faucet, okay? That is requirement 1. Now requirement 2 has 3 components. The first one is the direct materials price variance, okay? So I put the formula here straight out of the book. So your direct materials price variance is your actual price minus your standard price times your actual quantity, okay? So my actual price, okay, and we're talking about materials, okay? Your actual price for the materials, actual price per pound of brass is $1.95. I'm going to subtract my standard price. Your standard price of brass, according to the problem, is $1.80. Okay, it'll be $1.80. And then I'm going to multiply times my actual quantity. Okay, how much brass do I need? It says actual pounds of brass during the week used were 13,000 pounds. Okay. And now we can get our calculator out and let's see what it gives us. $1.95 minus $1.80 gives me 15-cent difference in my materials times 13,000 pounds. That gives me 1,950, and that is a positive number. Okay. So if it's positive, is it a favorable or unfavorable variance? Okay. So this is what we have to analyze. Did I spend more or less than I had anticipated? Where your actual price was $1.95, okay, you had anticipated spending $1.80. So you spend more than what you had anticipated. So because this is a positive variance, that means this is an unfavorable variance. Unfavorable. You spend more than what we had anticipated. So it's unfavorable. So if it's positive, it's unfavorable, okay? The next calculation we have is the direct materials quantity variance. This is your actual quantity minus your standard quantity times your standard price, okay? So my actual quantity of pounds of brass used during the week, your actual pounds, it's stated in the problem as 13,000 pounds, okay? I'm going to subtract my standard quantity. Now we have to be careful here. The standard quantity is not provided, okay? We have to calculate it, okay? So I'm going to calculate the standard quantity right here, okay? And your standard quantity is going to be, well, I know that I produce 5,000 faucets during the week. That is my goal, producing 5,000 faucets, okay? That's the number of faucets produced during the week. So that's going to be 5,000. And I'm going to multiply that 5,000 times how much do I anticipate using up in brass per faucet? Well, my standard number of pounds of brass per faucet is 2.5 pounds. Okay. So now if I multiply that, I've got my 5,000 times my 2.5 pounds. That's going to give me 12,500. Okay. 12,500 pounds. Okay. And let me make that a little bit smaller. Okay. So my standard quantity was a 5,000. That's the number of faucets that I need to manufacture. And my how much material, what's my standard material usage per faucet? Well, it says here that the standard number of pounds of brass you need are 2.5 pounds. So that's going to give me my standard quantity of 12,500 pounds. And then I am going to multiply times my standard price. Your standard price, where is it? Right here. Standard price per pound of brass, that's $1.80. Okay, $1.80. Okay, so we're going to multiply times $1.80. Okay, and then that's going to give us, so let's see what that gives us. Let's get our calculator out. So that is 13,000 pounds minus 12,500. That's 500 times $1.80. That gives me $900, and the number is positive. Okay. So, direct materials quantity variance. Okay. We anticipated spending 12,500 pounds of brass. We actually spent 13,000 pounds of brass. So we spend more brass than what we had anticipated. Because we spend more brass than that 900 variance there for my direct materials quantity variance is unfavorable. I spend more than what I had anticipated or what I had established as my standard. Okay. So we have a 900 unfavorable variance. Okay. Now for your total direct materials cost variance, that is your price difference. Okay, the price variance plus your quantity variance, whatever you calculated on those two. So I calculated first a 1950 unfavorable plus a quantity variance of 900 unfavorable. And let's see what that gives us. So I've got 1950 unfavorable plus 900 unfavorable. That gives me 2,850 unfavorable. Okay, so when we're talking about materials price variance, both the materials price and the materials quantity variances were unfavorable. Okay. Unfavorable. If they're positive, they're unfavorable. Okay, so we have to get those 1950 plus the 900 to get our total direct material cost variance. We spent in total, both in price and in quantity, $2,850 more than what we had anticipated. Okay, so that is requirement 2. We've already calculated the 3 components: our direct materials price variance, our direct materials quantity variance, and our total direct material cost variance, which is basically adding just whatever you get on the direct materials price plus the direct materials quantity variance. Okay. The last component deals with labor. Okay, so the second part dealt with materials, the third part deals with labor. Okay, so the first thing they're asking us to calculate is the direct labor rate variance. Direct labor rate variance. So the direct labor rate variance is your actual rate per hour minus your standard rate per hour times your actual hours. Okay, so my actual rate per hour, it's the actual wage per hour is $18.75. Okay. Golly, there we go. $18.75 minus your standard rate per hour. My standard wage per hour is $20. So I'm going to subtract $20. Okay. And then close parentheses. And then I'm going to multiply times the actual hours. Okay. Actual hours. It says actual hours for the week, 2,660 hours. Okay. So that'll be 2,660 hours. Okay. And let's see what that gives us. So it's 1875 is your actual minus your 20, which is your standard, that's negative 125, and then I multiply it by my actual hours of 2660. That gives me a negative 3325. Now we need to determine, is this a favorable or unfavorable variance? Well, my standard rate is, we anticipated spending $20 an hour in our labor. We actually ended up paying our employees $18.75. So did you pay your employees more or less? Well, we paid less. We paid them $18.75 when we had identified or set a standard of $20 an hour. So that means I had some cost savings there in my labor rate. Okay, a cost savings of $3,325. Okay, because I saved money because I used up or I paid less in my labor, then that is a favorable variance. So if it's a negative number, it's a favorable variance. Okay. The next one we have is our direct labor time variance. Our direct labor time variance is our actual direct labor hours minus our standard direct labor hours times our standard rate per hour. Okay, so my actual direct labor hours, actual, are 2,660, right there, the last item, 2660. That's the number of hours that you actually used up. Okay, so I've got 2,660. I'm going to subtract my standard direct labor hours. Okay, standard direct labor hours. Now we don't have our standard direct labor hours. Okay, we have to calculate that. Okay, so it says here that the number of faucets produced during the week are 5,000 faucets. Okay, so let me do the calculation down here. This is your standard direct labor hours. Okay, and then we know that the number of faucets that we produced were 5,000 faucets. Okay, and then I'm going to multiply it by how long it takes me to manufacture each faucet, and I'm going to divide it by the 60 minutes in an hour because of the time component. Okay, and let's see what that gives us. That's 30 divided by 60, that's half, times 5,000. That's 2,500 hours. Okay. Okay. Where did it go? Right here. Nope, not there. Where did I leave it? Right here. Oh Lord. Okay, right here. I'm gonna format it. What am I formatting? Right here. Okay. So my standard direct labor hours, we just calculated them. Let me just format it all. There we go. Okay, so my standard direct labor hours, we just calculated them at, oh, sorry about that. I just want to put an extra space there. Okay, at 2,500 hours. Okay. And then I'm going to multiply times my standard rate per hour. Okay, so my standard rate per hour, standard wage per hour is $20 an hour. Okay. So then what does that give me? Okay, let's see. So I've got 2,660 is my actual minus my standard of 2,500. It's 160, and I want to multiply that by my standard rate of $20. That gives me 3,200. Now the number is a positive 3,200. Okay. Now, is that direct labor time variance positive or negative? The number is positive. So is that a favorable or unfavorable variance? Well, I know that we actually used up 2,660 hours when our standard rate was 2,500 hours. So we were anticipating investing 2,500 hours. We ended up investing more. We ended up using 2,660. So we used up more than what we had anticipated. So now that is causing a positive number, which is 3,200. That means that is an unfavorable variance. So if it's a positive number, it's an unfavorable variance. Okay. Okay. Now, once we have those two calculated, we can calculate our total direct labor cost variance. Your total direct labor cost variance is basically your rate difference times your time difference. Okay, so we're basically going to get whatever we calculated in the first part, which is the 3325, and it's in minus 3,325, and then I am going to add, and there's no need to put 3325, that's negative. Okay, and I'm going to add whatever we calculated in our time difference, which was 3,200 positive. And let's see what that gives us. 3,200 minus 3,325. That gives me a negative 125. Okay. So because it is in parentheses, what does it mean when we have it in parentheses? Okay. Which number is greater, the one in parentheses or the one without parentheses? The one in parentheses is greater, so that means this number is going to be in parentheses. And if it's in parentheses, that means that it is a favorable variance. The net effect of my labor ended up being, for my labor rate, 3,325 favorable, meaning we paid less to our employees than what we had anticipated. And then my time variance, this is how much actual time was invested into manufacturing the product. Okay, we anticipated spending 2,500 hours. We actually spent 2,660. So that caused an unfavorable variance of 3,200. So the total direct labor cost variance is the difference between the two, which is 125 favorable variance. Okay. So that is a problem 23-1A, that you're going to have on your test. So please, when you're working on your homework, make sure that you understand why it's favorable, what is not favorable, and that you clearly understand each of the calculations. Okay. And if you have any questions about any of the problems, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. If you have a question, please include the question number on your Blackboard message, your specific question or questions you might have, and I want to see your work. I want to see what you're doing so I can be able to provide guidance. Don't just send me an email and say, Miss, I'm having problems with problem 23-7. Okay, what kind of problems are you having? I need to know. Okay, and I need to see you try. Use the examples provided in the book, the examples provided in Disengage when you get that problem. Sometimes they include some scenarios there or some examples. But I want to see you try, and then once you try and you don't get it, then send me your work. I'll review it, and then I'll let you know. I'll provide some guidance. Okay, so this problem is very important because you are going to see it at your upcoming exam. So make sure that you practice it very carefully on your homework problems. Okay, so that is basically the last part of the lecture for chapter 23. I hope all of you enjoy the chapter. This is a very interesting chapter that deals with analyzing different types of variances. Make sure that you keep up with your assignments because we are reaching the end of the semester, and I do want to ensure that all students earn the most points possible. So please ensure that, I don't give you all of this homework to keep you busy. I give it to you so you can practice, because this is accounting and the only way you're going to learn it is by practicing it, by doing it. Okay, so it's very important that you complete all of your assignments. The quizzes are intended to identify if you understood what you read, and then the homework are application based. Okay, we solve problems. So that is it for chapter 23. Until next time, take care.